Yo, welcome back to another video. I'm gonna get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I thought I was gonna get an update on my iPad, but I didn't. It's all good. It's all good. Let me, okay. This is Spider-Man versus, Miles Morales. Um, it's like the Peter versus, Miles. Wow. How Peter will win and Miles, how Peter will lose, Miles will win. But I wasn't about to put all that in the title. Bro, tell me what's really going on. Drizzy back in this. Nah, but for real, bro, these females, bro, hard to talk to. I was talking to this one girl. I said, "What time you gonna wake up tomorrow?" She said, "When I'm fully rested." Like, what the does that mean? What does that mean? Told her, what she like eating. She said Chinese food. I ain't got time for it, man. I was like, man, she wild. I'm gonna just get on here and stream. But anyways, let's get into the video.
Let's go, man, before he gets too far.
No. He's mine.
You sure? He's got big teeth.
So do I.
I know he's gonna say that. Even before he said it, I was like,
ahead of the release of the highly anticipated Spider-Man 2, Insomniac has been pretty reserved when it comes to showcasing new game content. But from what we've seen in the gameplay and story trailers, it's safe to assume that the Venom symbiote is going to play a massive role in the game's plot. Now, although we don't know exactly who Venom is yet, we do know for sure that the Venom symbiote will fuse with Peter at some point, and, like we've seen before, probably change him in many different ways. The symbiote doesn't only give Peter a suit upgrade alongside additional abilities, it also burdens him with negative effects like aggression and loss of control, which actually is exactly what seems like is happening, as implied by Miles and MJ in this clip from the story trailer.
What the hell's going on with Pete?
He's not himself. Go help him.
Now, although the symbiote will never make Peter outright evil, it can affect his emotional control and decision making. As we've seen from the first gameplay reveal, Peter seems to be wildly concerned about his best friend Harry Osborn and is keen on saving him. Now, we know that Peter lost Aunt May in the first game, and that was a very tough point in his life. He probably won't be at ease with the idea that he might lose another loved one. This could lead to a situation where Peter's desire to help his friend might blindside him from what dangers he might be causing others.
I know what I do.
So with this information in mind, we can assume that there might be a conflict between Peter and the gang, and if so, I could imagine Miles stepping up to the plate and facing Peter in hopes of not only protecting the others, but to also help Peter and rid him of the symbiote. Regardless of what franchise, it is always an absolute spectacle when we get to see two protagonists go at it. Seeing the strong forces of righteousness and plot armor clash against one another, most of all two Spideys going head to head in a battle to find out who takes the edge and reign victorious. Which brings us right to the topic of this video, and my personal take: why Miles would beat Peter if they fought in Spider-Man 2. So without further ado, let's swing right in.
He would have to. Would he? If he didn't, all is lost.
Throughout Insomniac's last two Spider-Man installments, Peter Parker and Miles Morales have had their own unique and defining stories. Now, even though they've crossed paths and even teamed up once or twice, we haven't seen a full-on dynamic duo game in which both Spideys play a pivotal role to the plot, up until this year, where it has been confirmed and shown that both Peter and Miles will be playable. Now here's where things get interesting. With the Venom symbiote seemingly playing a larger role, it's not just about the new looks and abilities. It's about the possibility of conflict that is going to surface from Peter's use of the symbiote. Canonically, we know that the symbiote has negative effects on Peter's personality. So imagine the tension that will arise as Peter grapples with the symbiote's influence, resulting in what could be the most iconic battle in the Insomniac Spider-Man franchise. Before we can weigh into a winner of a potential fight between Miles and Peter, we first have to break down the criteria which will be used to scale each character's abilities. To help put things into perspective, we're going to break down this comparison into three different categories: strength, powers, and intelligence. I think this will really help us parallel the two Spideys and compare different aspects accordingly. Before we get into the beefy parts of the video, I just want to preface that we are going to be using some references from different adaptations of Spider-Man and not just Insomniac's. For the most part, Insomniac's adaptation follows closely with the canon details, so whether it's game, comic, or movie, we can't assume that the attributes are shared throughout. So with that being said, let's dive right into the first category. Strength. Comparing Peter and Miles' strength isn't the easiest, since they are both canonically considered to be roughly equal in physical strength. But Peter may have an edge in this due to his age and, in this particular scenario, his symbiote buff, which can greatly amplify his abilities. In general, both Spideys possess superhuman strength, which enables them to do things like lift very heavy objects, smash through walls, and even stop moving vehicles.
He could do
For the most
stuff
part,
like
we haven't
that,
seen
but
anything throughout the
fuck
last few
Peter.
games that indicate a Spidey being greatly superior than the other. Both Miles and Peter utilize their strength in similar ways, and I think in a hypothetical truck lifting competition, they would probably put up similar numbers. Throughout the entire Spider-Man franchise, we've seen countless evidence of Peter using his strength to achieve incredible feats, such as stopping a moving train and lifting an entire air bridge. When it comes to Miles, he is a new generation Spidey, so even though he might not have a similar catalog to Peter's, he does have some very notable strength feats in the comics, like the Secret Empire event when he managed to shatter Captain America's shield. Nevertheless, it is worth noting that many of Peter's limitations are self-imposed. Unlike Miles' tragic family member death, Peter's was a direct consequence of his decision-making. He played a role in Uncle Ben's death, and this gave him an understanding of the responsibility he bears, which created mental blocks and self-restrictions that he now places on himself. For example, there is a situation in the comics which Doc Ock takes over Peter's body for a while, and when he first ever tried punching a villain, he took off his entire jaw, not understanding how much power he wields in his hands. So if we stop and analyze, the symbiote might weaken these restrictions or even remove them completely. If this is the case, we can confidently say that from a raw strength standpoint, Peter would wipe the floor with Miles. So with the benefits of experience and a handy alien symbiote, I think it's safe for us to say Peter takes the strength category. Now that we know who takes the edge in brawn, let's move on to powers. Things become much more complex when we talk about powers because, unlike strength, both Miles and Peter possess vastly different power sets. Before we get to the specifics of their powers, we should first note what abilities both Miles and Peter share first. As far as Spider-Men go, there are some fundamental abilities that are obtained when bitten by a radioactive spider. Unlike other superheroes, the Spider-Man we know and love could easily be mistaken as a super strong gymnast. While in use, his abilities don't blare out magical spells or beams of energy, but rather most of the powers are internal. For example, ultra-fast reflexes. Spideys are able to react far faster than a normal human, achieving variable feats like even dodging bullets. Another is extreme durability, which allows them to take very strong hits and attacks without taking much damage. This makes them very resilient, and even though a villain may be stronger, he would have to work very hard to try and kill a Spidey. On top of that, they also have accelerated speed. This is a no-brainer. Spideys are known for their extreme acrobatic abilities and fast movement. Like we've seen a lot of times before, Spidey is able to traverse through a building that is collapsing down and use his skills to land safely, while potentially even saving a person or two. For the most part, both Miles and Peter share these internal buffs, which would definitely come to use in their potential bout, as they both understand how these advantages set the stage. Now getting into the most important shared power, the Spidey sense. This is quite possibly the most important weapon in Spidey's arsenal, and it is the closest we will get to a mystical type, god level power. The Spidey sense is known to be one of the strongest abilities in the Marvel Universe, as it pretty much makes its user aware of a potential threat in the near future, allowing Spidey to foresee events and stop them from taking place. This is where we start to see a discrepancy between Miles and Peter's abilities. Although some fans believe Peter's Spidey sense is more intense and accurate, it's mostly known that both Peter and Miles share the same Spidey sense. But here's the catch. In this particular scenario, the symbiote actually hinders the Spidey sense's accuracy, massively nerfing Peter's most useful power. And we know this from this new clip showing an altercation between Peter and Kraven. Peter isn't able to consistently dodge Kraven's attacks as he completely overpowers him, landing multiple strikes and then even subduing him in the process. So taking this info into consideration, a lot changes.
Miles
Miles
couldn't
would have
even
a
sense
massive
Peter when he
advantage
came
during
in.
the standoff. With one's senses hindered and the others being as clear as day, countless
In that
attacks and
first
defenses
trailer?
would go unreciprocated by Peter, and therefore creates a larger gap between the two. This nerfed and inconsistent Spidey sense will seriously cost Peter in our hypothetical fight, as he will be much more vulnerable. Now that we've explained what powers both our protagonists share, we can start describing the differences between Miles and Peter. Starting off with Peter, for the most part, his unique abilities stem from the symbiote, which we will get into shortly. But first, let's discuss the all-new ability we see him using in the latest gameplay reveal, the Bionic Arms. Now, even though we were able to actually use these in Insomniac's first game through a DLC, it is now confirmed that the tech is officially part of the lore and will be used by Peter during the story. We haven't seen much of these arms in use, but the story trailer did show us a few snippets, and man, do these things look absolutely insane. Yes, they were awesome to use in the first installment, and for the most part, they were pretty damn strong, but now they are just in a different dimension. They attack at lightning speed, and even allow Peter to traverse absurdly fast. I've noticed it isn't something that got a lot of attention, but personally I think this is one of the coolest upgrades that Peter got in game. This gives Peter a massive edge when it comes to movement and dexterability. Now with 8 arms, he's quite literally living up to his name as Spider-Man. And we still don't yet know how the symbiote might integrate
they have
these
8
arms
legs.
and make them even more
catch
powerful
on.
than they already are.
I got it now.
It should go
But
without
you only
saying
have
why these arms would come in very handy against the fellow
10.
Spider-Man. They would definitely give Peter
If
the
they were
advantage
legs.
when it comes to traversal abilities, even against Miles'
Or even
free-flowing
arms.
acrobatic
That'd be
style.
10.
Now that we've seen the awesome implementation of the new arms, let's talk about the most anticipated part of the game, the symbiote powers. The last time we had an open world Spider-Man game that heavily involved the symbiote was close to 15 years ago in the 2008 Spider-Man Web of Shadows game.
No, that's on.
Although we've seen some great implementations of the symbiote powers, I think Insomniac's is the most intuitive to date, especially with the use of the symbiote's iconic trait, the tendrils. I mean, just looking at the recent gameplay trailers alone, we can see that Insomniac seriously went into depth when designing the mechanics of the symbiote abilities. Peter can use the tendrils in a more aggressive manner, pulling in his opponents and smashing them to the ground. One ability showcases Peter turning into a spike ball,
on them if they
dashing
didn't
into a group of enemies and launching them into
They already
the
stained the
air.
game.
And if that wasn't enough, there seems to be a more powerful version
think
of
they
this
just
ability,
tweaking
where
though.
Peter
They
jumps
don't
into
play
the
the
air and shoots out
Even they know
multiple
it.
tendrils, incapacitating all enemies within his proximity. It's safe to say the symbiote's abilities are very powerful, allowing Peter to still exploit his already lucrative abilities while also utilizing the symbiote's destructive potential. These newfound abilities are going to prove to be a massive difficulty for Spidey's adversary.
Him with the Superman
Peter's
punch.
symbiote style of fighting will be new and unpredictable to Miles, as he'll have to worry about a much wider range of attacks. Peter could use the symbiote to overwhelm Miles by tiring him out with a constant barrage of tendril attacks that won't give him the time and space he would need to devise a counter strategy. Now, we've already noted that Miles takes the lead when it comes to the Spidey Senses ability, but that is only the first advantage in a long list for him, because now we're going to get into the set of powers that Miles obtains, which Peter doesn't. Most important amongst these is his bioelectricity. This power alone is the single most important discrepancy between the two in this hypothetical fight. I can't even begin to explain to you guys how perfect and important this power is. Miles uses his power and manipulates it to wrap his limbs and body in electricity to buff his strikes.
I wonder if
attacks.
the suit's gonna have
Yes, you
two
heard that
powers
right.
in
Miles
this
has
year.
a power that so happens to be the biggest symbiote weakness: extreme heat. And if that wasn't enough, the power itself emanates right from his body, so Peter cannot even disarm him of this ability. During Miles' standalone game, we were able to see this power in action. It is used in many different ways, like wrapping his hand in electricity as he strikes his opponent, or charging up all the electricity and releasing it in one massive shock blast. But now for Spider-Man 2, Miles has clearly learned how to wield his powers much better and seriously upgraded his bioelectricity abilities. First of these is that he can now manipulate his electricity enough to shoot it out and even hit his enemies who are at range. This is an absolute huge buff to his already strong ability. He doesn't even need to risk getting too close to Peter during an engagement, and can attack him with his bioelectricity from safe ranges. If that wasn't already an insane upgrade, Miles now seems to be able to teleport using his bioelectricity. Yes, you're seeing this right. Miles just outright disappeared, then reappeared in what seems to be a lightning strike hitting the ground. Now, we don't know if there
I
are
don't even
any
know
specific
it was
conditions
that.
that need
What
to
if
be
he
met
just
for Miles to be able to
disappeared
use
and
this,
just
but
jumped in the
regardless,
air?
the advantages a power like this provides just goes without saying.
I don't know.
Even though we don't know how lucrative this power is yet, we can say that Miles wouldn't have to worry about Peter ever getting too close. I mean, these are just precisely the powers a person would need if they happen to run into Venom. If Peter grabs a hold of him, Miles would simply need to blast electricity to be free of his grasp. Each of Miles' bioelectricity attacks would inflict a lot of damage on Peter and would maybe even daze him, giving Miles another advantage as Peter would need time to recover.
I just
after
get one
each
of those
successful attack.
pipes, put it
Nevertheless,
all around him,
there
and
aren't
just
many
hit
reasons I need to
all of
explain
them.
how Miles could use his most notable powers
Maybe
to exploit
save
his opponent's
Peter.
biggest weakness. As if the extremely versatile bioelectricity powers were not enough, Miles also has a cloaking ability. He can virtually turn completely invisible, which is an impeccable utility for sneaking and evading. Now, usually this wouldn't be much of a problem since, using the Spidey sense, Peter would easily know where Miles is and when he might attack. But as I've mentioned earlier, the symbiote may be hindered or possibly not even register Miles as a threat. And if so, this could enable this advantage for Miles and allow him to traverse throughout the particular arena without being detected by Peter. He could use this ability to briefly escape if he's found in danger, or even perform very sneak attacks. I think it's a no-brainer that Miles dominates the power section. Now let's move on to our third and final category, intelligence.
He's a college professor. Of course, Peter gonna get.
Intelligence plays a pivotal role in any brawl or battle. Having the intuition to know what is needed to beat the adversary, to know what the strengths and weaknesses are, and how they could be used to further improve your chances of winning. Part of this intelligence is knowing how to adapt to the fight as the circumstances change by being able to constantly reanalyze the situation. Peter Parker is canonically known to be one of the smartest characters in the entire Marvel universe, even up there with the likes of Reed Richards. Insomniac does an excellent job capturing the intelligence of Peter as a man of extraordinary brilliance in the realm of science and invention. He used his knowledge of chemistry to create and build what is probably his most used utility, his web shooters. It's easy for people to forget that most of the gadgets and equipment that Peter uses throughout the games has been researched and manufactured solely by him. Some of these include
Yeah, I know. I
Spider-Drone,
had to find all them
electrowebbing,
research
trip
tokens to
bombs,
get them.
and many more. We've seen Peter's intellect firsthand as he was a
Same
research
thing for
assistant
Miles,
at
though.
Octavius Industries, utilizing his mechanical engineering skills. Now sure, we get it. Peter is very book smart. But how does he apply this intellect in his crime-fighting life? When it comes to knowing what to do in the middle of an intense fight, few come close to the likes of Peter. At this point in time in the Insomniac verse, Peter is a very seasoned Spider-Man, as he's taken on and defeated members of the Sinister Six multiple times. This entails that Peter has had to accommodate and adapt to each of these villains accordingly, improvising with his different powers and gadgets to overcome his opponents. Moving on to his counterpart, Insomniac hasn't shown many details suggesting how intelligent Miles really is, but it is mentioned that he developed an inclination of technology at an early age, taking apart his family's TV at the age of 5. As we've seen in the Miles game, he and Finn successfully created an energy converter that was even featured at Oscorp's science convention. So it's safe to say that Miles is technologically gifted and very book smart, but nothing quite says that he was close to that of Peter's absolute genius. But someone who might actually come close though is Miles' best friend and what some would call his guy in the chair, Genki. This is a very crucial detail when it comes to comparing the advantages of the two Spideys. Genki is a master of software development. His skills were shown off to us when we saw his FNSM app, which he developed in the Miles Morales installment. Not to mention, he has high-level hacking skills, which he could use to help Miles by remotely scrambling enemy equipment and communication, or even steal classified information. When taking into consideration what we've seen in the trailer, Genki seems to have complete control over Kraven's drone. This is important to note because it portrays that Genki can use his technical skills to even turn enemies' weapons against them. Similar to Iron Man's Jarvis, Miles will constantly have his friend feeding him information and giving him tips on how to succeed. Genki might be able to give Miles info on how he could use the arena to his advantage and if there is anything that might be around which Miles may not be aware of. Genki is in a separate location away from the fight with all the tech he might need to access different types of resources for Miles. That being said, I think that with the amazing help of Genki, Miles might be able to close the gap in fight IQ and even take the intelligence category. After comparing each of Miles and Peter's different capabilities, it's conceived that due to his experience and talents, Peter might be the last Spidey standing. But I think Miles' unique and extravagant powers, especially his bioelectricity, puts him as the favorite to win this awesome showdown. As we eagerly await the release of Spider-Man 2, the debate rages on. Who would emerge victorious in a showdown? It's a tough call, but considering Miles' unique powers and abilities, I think the odds might just tip in his favor. What do you guys think? If I missed any important details, or if you simply disagree with my take, please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm slightly taking a new approach with the content, so if you guys enjoy these types of videos, please make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons and ring that notification bell. Any sort of feedback really goes a long way and can help me create the best possible videos for you guys. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.
So the game comes out in 3 days, 23 hours, and 19 minutes. So Friday at midnight. That 23 hours is like equal to a whole day, like a day from now. We'll have 3 days left. Or maybe it'll be summed up by tomorrow. Maybe it'll be like 224 and something like that. But thank y'all for watching. I'm gonna see y'all in the next one.